Shang Dynasty, China in the Bronze Age, around 1766 to 1122 BCE. Those dates are approximate. China in the Bronze Age, with the Shang Dynasty, is really the first Chinese dynasty that we have evidence for. It's clearly not going to be the last. We're going to be talking about dynasties in China from now till mid next semester. But this is the first one that we have it. The Shang Dynasty, China in the Bronze Age. And this is the first of the Chinese dynasties that we'll be discussing, and the first that we have historical evidence for the existence of. This society is a Bronze Age society, and a couple of things to keep in mind whenever we talk about the Bronze Age. And bronze, you got to remember, bronze is a compound metal. It's made out of copper and tin, or arsenic instead of tin. And so any society that uses bronze has to have long-distance trade or a large empire. Bronze generally is not, the things that bronze are made out of generally are not found next to each other. So you either have to be able to get it from diplomacy, from trade, or like I said, from conquering large areas. So a certain cosmopolitan sophistication from coming in contact for different areas has to come with the fact that these are Bronze Age societies, just in order to get the requirements for it. Bronze produces strong, durable tools. It's more malleable than stone. You cast it in molds, you can heat it up and repair it. It keeps a sharper edge than stone. So you're looking at from a weapon, it's a much better weapon. Stronger, more durable, more deadly. It also makes excellent tools and sophisticated art. But the weapons are key, and it's not basically, it's worthwhile keeping in mind that when we talk about Bronze Age societies, we tend to be talking about warrior cultures, warrior elites, and that's true in China, that's true in Assyria. Remember those Neo-Assyrians? That's true in Egypt, that's true with the Mycenaeans, if you ever had to listen to the Trojan War. And sort of that's the image you need to think about when you're thinking about the Shang. One of the things that the Shang are going to face, but also so is every other following Chinese dynasty, is that China is an incredibly diverse place. And so you have to think about it as China is going to grow from this little itty-bitty triangle, which is the Shangs, the area that the Shang hold up in the north, to this huge area that you're seeing represented in that map. And that each time China expands, they're going to be bringing in people with new cultural traits, new dialects or languages, new geographical regions, everything from eventually the tropics down south to the coastline, to the cold up next to Siberia, to the mountains next to the Himalayan mountains. All of those areas, everything from deserts to rainforests, are part of China. And there's this ongoing reality in China that they're constantly having to adapt to and bring in and try to cope with these new people who are being added. And that, what you're seeing right there, is a list with that map of the 10 major languages that are still in existence in China today, still being spoken. And that is many less than there used to be even 200 years ago. One of the factors that unifies China historically, and this is something that we find beginning with the Shang, is writing, the system of writing that was used. And the thing about it is it's logographic, not alphabetic. Basically what that means is letters, on an alphabetic system, letters are associated with sounds. And so depending on your language, you use different letters to make up the words. So if I'm saying man in English, if I want to say man in French, I would say homme, and it would be H-O-M-M-E. In Spanish, it would be hombre, H-O-M-B-R-E. However, the same word for the same symbol is going to be used for man, regardless of which dialect of Chinese you happen to be speaking. So it's a unifying factor in that people across all the different languages can actually use it. And in fact, that Chinese writing system is originally used for writing in Korea, in Japan, in the area that's going to become Vietnam. So it's a very useful system in that way. On the other hand, it means there's a lot of symbols to memorize, and so only an elite ever really uses it historically. But still, it does create a unifying factor across the area that becomes China. And of course, writing is used under the Shang and later for record keeping. What we have the most evidence for is of it being used for divination, predicting the future, but other reasons as well. China's first dynasty, the Shang, like we said before, warrior elite, Bronze Age, chariot warriors. If you ever had to read the Iliad, where everybody's clashing in their warfare in front of the city of Troy, I always use that as sort of a useful image of what some of this might be like. Chariot warfare, which requires sort of an elite soldiers at the top. They're the only ones who can afford the chariots and the servants and the horses and everything you need to do the fighting, supported by foot troops. Highly effective, able to conquer and bring new areas into the Shang areas of rule. Constant warfare, historically, as best we can see. So part of it's for expansion, expanding, bringing new areas in. Some of it's for control, preventing revolutions, rebellions from within the area that's been conquered. Some of it's to keep warriors busy. If you depend on your warrior elite to help you run your country, you don't want them getting bored and thinking that maybe one of the better things to do would be to overthrow you. And of course to bring in captives and all the various spoils and wealth possible for the king. And this is important because, well, they're useful in and of themselves. Captives can be sacrificed, they can be used in other ways, the various wealth can be used by the king. But also, one of the ways that kings historically in this kind of society keep their power is by providing plenty of gifts to their warriors who fight for them. So if you want to keep your warriors happy with you, you want to keep them busy, you got to keep with the conquering, you got to keep with the fighting. Divination is one thing that was used by the Shang to help them rule and control their land. And the method of prediction was done through writing symbols on bone or writing symbols on tortoise shells. You've got an example here, and if you take a moment and pause this, you can read the prediction. You can maybe get a sense of how the prediction were often worded in ways that made different possible happenings could be read into the original prediction. Another place where the king gained status was by acting as a high priest, the one who links and creates an association with the gods, particularly the high god Di, and makes offerings for the people. Offerings came in a wide variety of ways. Human sacrifices were included, animal sacrifices, but also sacrifices of food, wine, other valuable goods as well. And those would of course be made to the various nature gods, to the high god Di, but also to your ancestors. And the belief was that the royal ancestors did help protect and guide the kings of the Shang Dynasty. Kinship was probably the basic organizing force in the society. And you would have these networks of kin, both your immediate family, father, mother, brother, sister, daughter, son, parents, all that kind of stuff. But you probably also had a larger kinship network based around the concept of this is my mythical ancestor, and we share a mythical ancestor, and that gives us some kind of connection, someone else to turn to in times of trouble. It also probably organized fighters into some of the first military units as well. Within a family, there was probably a pretty tight hierarchy with parents at the top, children at the bottom. And in another area where this played out was kings usually depended on their kinfolk as administrators. The idea that you could trust your kin to support you and to work for you without betraying you. Didn't always work that way, but that was the hope. Kinship, however, doesn't end with death. And in the case of the royal ancestors, it was seen as particularly important. The kings used this as a way to help gain and secure their power. But even if you're not royalty, you still want to give gifts to your ancestors. on a regular basis. They are in the spirit world, but they still look after and care for their descendants, particularly if you do the right thing by making regular gifts to them. If you fail to do that, they will not look after you, and in fact your ancestors may turn against you. And that's where the curses come in. But the ancestors are the ones who, the royal ancestors are the ones who, if the Shang are in trouble, they're the ones who might interfere with thee, the great god. They're the ones who may send dreams to help guide you in your correct actions. They may curse your enemies, and then, like I said, if you're not taking proper care of your ancestors, they may curse you as well. In this case, what you're seeing here is a horse-drawn chariot, and this is an example of a sacrifice in which the chariot itself was sacrificed, given up, but also so were the horses and the slaves or servants who were used to care for the horses and for the chariot as well.